it took me 6 months of follow-up with no contract signed, never asked about price. And then finally, one day he said, Jen, I'm ready.
You knew it was a hot property by now. You didn't know it was gonna be this good.
No. Yeah, so we actually netted 129.
129, $129,000. Well, I'm really excited for today's interview. It's with Jen Salcido, and she's actually one of us fast trackers. She's come through the program, came out to Puerto Rico. What was it, a few months ago now, Jen?
Yeah, in January.
Yep. And her and her partner, Jasmine, are working together and just doing such a fantastic job building the business, doing deals. And it was really fun to spend some time with you, Jen, and get to know you and what you guys are up to and your business. And it was fun because just like casually, you shared with me this deal you guys did. And it was just this crazy deal, super high profit deal. And I'm just really excited for you to share. That's the deal I think you're going to share, right?
Yeah.
And lots of lessons learned and things that happened that all made it all come together. So it's really fun to hear these stories. And Jen, why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about you, your background, how long ago you got started, what it was like to go from like beginner learning to taking that first step and taking action, and then we'll get into like how you've progressed the business.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm born and raised Texan. So I grew up in a city called Garland, Texas. I live now in Fort Worth. So I work in my backyard market. I did the whole college thing. I went to Texas A&M, graduated, and did the corporate thing. I was an area manager for Amazon, and soon realized like that was just so grueling. Mind you, it's great for people who love that kind of work, but I just realized I wasn't suited for an employee. So I actually started in 2020. I was a notary signing agent, and that's when the refinance boom started because the rates just took a dive. So I did probably close to 2,000 loan closings from 2020 to 2021. And then, of course, the rates shot back up in 22. And I pivoted, but I wanted to stay into real estate. And so I knew I didn't want to drive anymore because I was driving all over Fort Worth. Then I was like, I just feel like I'm always in service in this game. And that's kind of when I started. Was I think November of 22 is when I did the fast track program. Yeah. And so I didn't go head first. Like I was kind of lazy with it. I'm going to be honest. I was kind of lazy with it. I hopped on a few Zooms and then I was in and out a few times. Wasn't taking it serious because I was a mortgage broker. And so how we got to that deal, and it was it was a 6-figure deal. My mom's neighbor actually waved her down, and he was just in passing, and they're not friends by any means. Like they don't go over to each other's houses and have lunch or whatever. But he was like, "Hey, Catherine, I'm leaving." And she goes like, "What do you mean? Where are you going?" And she goes, "Well, I'm buying a house in East Texas and I'm building brand new and I have all these acres." And she goes, "Okay, well, what are you going to do with the house?" And he goes, "Oh, well, I want to sell it." Right. And again, his intention was not to like say, "Hey, do you have anyone that wants to buy?" She just kind of knew I was in real estate. Right. And at the time, Yasmin also got her real estate agent license. And she just was like, "Hey, like my daughters-in-law, they're in real estate. Can I get your number?" And she got his number, just handed it off to me. And mind you, I was still just kind of being lazy with it, right? Not putting in enough action and too much into just the information phase. And I called him. I said, "Hey, like, what's your plans? What would you like to do?" Right? And he said, "Well, I would like to not do anything to the house. I just want to sell it." I said, "Okay, well, I would like to purchase it." He said, "Okay." Like, "I'm not ready yet." And I said, "Okay, when will you be ready?" Right? So it's the timing. It's a pillar of motivation and timing. And the house is bad. Like the roof needed to be replaced. I knew there's foundation issues because we could see it, right? Like if I go to my mom's house, I could see that it was just deferred. And every 3 weeks, follow up. So it took me 6 months of follow up with no contract signed, never asked about price. And then finally, one day he said, "Jen, I'm ready." And I said, "Okay."
Did you just put a reminder in your phone or something like every 3 weeks to reach out? Is that?
Yes. Yeah. No CRM, no Google
nothing.
Voice. I just did it straight from my phone.
Yeah.
And mind you, I was scared. So like at the beginning, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm just going to just ask the questions that Jerry teaches. And build the relationship up of trust. And so when I knew timing was right, he already had motivation and I kind of sort of knew about the condition. And I actually didn't even ask about what was going inside of the house until the 6 month mark. So
Yeah.
I kept it all just.
Because it didn't matter really. I mean, until he's serious, what's the point of any of that? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So 6 months later, he finally says on one of your follow-ups, I'm ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. What's interesting about that too, Jen, is if you think about it, the reason why you got the deal was because of you stayed front and center, I call it, right? Front of mind. And let's say that you didn't follow up, or let's say that you stopped following up after 90 days and just said, you know what? Clearly this is going nowhere and I'm wasting my time, and you just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Then what happens is when someone's finally ready, they're like, I'm ready. And then instantly they're like, who do I know? Who do I know? Oh, Jen, because Jen's been following up with me every couple of weeks and she's the one I'm going to call. That's the power of follow up. And you just never know. Like you just don't know. That's why we do it. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
those things go away and nothing ever comes of them. But this is like the thousandth story I've heard where someone was consistent with follow up and it results into a deal. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, such a great lesson though to learn about the power of follow up and staying front and center.
Yeah.
Agents are different, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So then you started having the discussion around. So now you're like, okay, I got to figure out price and I got to figure out condition. And so how'd that part go?
Um, so I asked him if he had a mortgage on it, if he's still paying something off, and he said, yes, I do. And I said, okay. Um, and this is counterintuitive to what I do now, which is I want them to say price first or a number
Mm-hmm.
first rather. And I actually did the math that you were teaching, actually you still teach at this time. And I kind of just said, okay, based off what I think I could sell it for, minus the closing costs. And mind you, we were actually going to flip it. So we weren't even thinking about wholesaling. We thought we were
Mm-hmm.
going to go down this path of flipping. And so my math was mathing out. And I said, I how do you feel about 173? And the ARV is 299. So that's actually right around where a flipper would buy it, right? And
Yeah.
so he said, that works. And it was too easy, right? And so we did the inspection. We definitely had an inspection period. I did get a 6K reduction off of that.
do you
Um,
do you think his real number might have been lower?
Maybe.
Okay.
Because I
Yeah.
realized when I did end up doing the inspection period and me walking with like a contractor, an actual contractor, it wasn't one of those, contractors, right?
Yeah.
Um, he didn't use the computer.
Mm.
So like, normally with older folks, they don't really know what their house is worth. And
Mm-hmm.
do they care, because all he knew was the vision of moving to East Texas in his brand new home with his wife. And so you're
Yeah,
probably.
most of the time sellers have a number in their head that they would net, like a net number. So like, hey, if I can walk out after I pay off everything, what's the number I get to walk out of closing with? And if that number fits something I want to do with my life, that's all
Mhm.
I care about. I want to get rid of it. And so, the our job is to really find that floor, I call it, right? What's the threshold where it's in the bottom of where they'll take, and it's your job to figure that out and extract that number, but
Mhm.
you know that now. And so anyway, you gave the number first. He said yes. You got a little bit of a reduction. That was because what'd you do? You use your contractor to kind of go back with more issues with the property.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't realize the driveway had foundation, cracks and stuff. Like I
Mm-hmm.
actually was completely honest with it and transparent. I was like, "Look, I that's going to cost me this amount. Would you be open to doing a reduction in
Yeah.
price?" And he was accepting of that because I gave him
Mm-hmm.
there was ammo. And so I
Yeah.
think 167 is where we landed. We
What did he owe on it? Did you say?
Yeah, he owed on it. He owed just a little bit of because he refinanced at some point. I think
Okay.
during the 2008 or before the
Mm-hmm.
2008. So he refinanced then. He had lived in the
But
house for 23 years.
but he's walking away with a big chunk of that money.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So he was good. I mean, the fact that he already had a house being built, that means he had some equity and
Mm-hmm.
reserves in there. So now I go for no. I don't ever give price first. And so
Mm-hmm.
unless absolutely necessary. Some sellers I realize that they really don't know. So you have to throw something out there.
And explain that for people listening. What does that mean? Go for no.
Um make an offer so low that it doesn't feel, it makes you feel very uncomfortable, right? Because you want them to say no.
Yeah.
You want the knee-jerk reaction to be like, what are you, like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
And be
There's
like,
no way I could do that. You're looking
right,
for them to say, there's no way I could go that low. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And then you use this line, I learned this from Jerry's. Yeah, that'd be great in a perfect world, but how close can we get? So it feels
So
more like a
magical.
collaboration. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
like that because it's very collaborative instead of like I'm on the other side of the table just giving you an offer.
Yeah. It's funny, Jed. One time I could not get the seller to give me the number first. And so finally I said, are you worried that the number I give you might be higher than the number you would want to take? Because I can guarantee you that won't be the case. And then we laughed, kind of like, ha ha ha. Because if you always want to ask that number from them because you want to see where their mind's at, are they retail, are they realistic, are they in la la land, like where's their head at around this. But we
Mhm.
also know that whatever number they say is typically a deceiver, because if I were on the other side of the table and the roles were reversed, I would do the same thing most sellers do. I'd give the Zillow number. I'd say, well, I'd like to get 500 because that's what Zillow is. Because if I'm going to name a price, I might as well ask for full value. And so, but that doesn't mean that's what they'll take. So then our job is to be like, well, the most I can pay would be in the high whatevers or the low whatevers, and you kind of ballpark it, but it's ridiculously low. They're going to say, there's no way I can pay that. You follow up exactly like you did. And you said, well, that's my number in the perfect world, but how close to that can you get? And
Mhm.
then that's where you see them negotiate against themselves. And
Yeah.
guys, that technique there, it's powerful. Like it's really does get you, it's the best way to get to the best price you can. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's what she means, go for no. Like that's the goal. We go for the no, and then we see if we can land somewhere where we want to be.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then did you sign a contract with them at the 176 number?
Yeah, so 173 was the first
173.
contract, and then we did an amendment at 167,
Okay.
and we closed on it. So I actually got hard money on it
Mm.
because we had the funds, and so
Mhm.
I'm a big saver, and so closed on it for maybe about a week or two. We got contractors in the door. We're getting estimates,
At
and
this point,
while
you still were going to flip it, right?
yeah, we were still
Yeah.
gonna flip it, and I don't know, something just clicked in my head, and while I was standing, I was like, "Man, we're gonna spend this much, and we're gonna make this much." We're thinking, profit 50, 55. And I have this huge whiteboard in my office, and I was just like, "Let me just go back and see." And just started doing the numbers, and this is a 2000 built, so PVC piping. It was a brick home. It was a 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage, and it was in Garland, Texas, and it's a very favorable city, a very favorable suburb of Dallas, of the DFW region. And I was like, we can make a wholesale fee at least 40. I was like, why would I do all this work, all this risk, X, Y, and Z? And
Mm-hmm.
because Yasmin had her agent license, we used her broker to put it on the market. And so we got the best, you call it a takedown, right? We did a
Mm-hmm.
takedown method. She did open houses. And I personally don't believe open houses sell the deals, but in this case it did. So we just had a
Mm.
unicorn buyer walk in, and it was a group
An
home
actual
owner.
buyer came to the open house.
Yes, an actual buyer
Wow.
without her agent. It was a we were
And someone in the neighborhood?
yeah, someone in the neighborhood who owned two group homes.
Mm.
And it's a small little subdivision that my parents live in. And so we didn't even know her, right? So she
Yeah.
came in, walked in on her own, and she was like, "Okay, I want this house." And we are like, "Okay, well, we're accepting highest and best, right? Because that's what you do on the market. You got to keep going highest and best and say that over and over again."
Yeah.
And she thought to herself, what she should offer. And originally, she just Yazin was the negotiator at that point. I was talking to someone else, and she goes, I think we had listed it for 225 on the market,
Okay.
225, and she goes 290. And Yasmin goes, she tells me the story after the fact. And I knew what she was thinking. She's like, this got to be a scam. This got to be a
Yeah.
scam. This is
They
just
can't
not,
be a real
it
buyer.
can't be
Yeah.
real. Way too much. Way too, and then, dollar signs in her eyes. And she's like, okay, well, we're still accepting highest and best. Mind you, like she's the highest. We had an offer at like in the 250s. And
So
those are
you did get an over ask price from someone else. So you knew it was a hot property by now, right? Like you knew
yes.
that you were going to move this thing, you were going to make a good profit on it.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know it was going to be this good.
No, no.
Okay. So you had
Yeah.
another offer 250 or whatever, and this one is a buyer that at 290 is what she like on the spot without an agent, unrepresented, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Unrepresented.
did she want to stay unrepresented and just work with Jasmine and like the whole thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So we
yeah,
we asked her, we are like, "Do you have an agent?" She's like, "Yeah, I do, but we can just work this out together." Right? So I
yeah,
think
yeah.
she's just thinking of like she doesn't want to pay an agent commission or anything.
Hmm.
Um, and she was like, "Well, I want to sign write a written contract." We literally had to go to our car, get the truck 1 to 4 because that's what we use in Texas, and we wrote it
Hmm.
in the kitchen. And then um, I think a couple days later, actually, or 2 days later, we had to get a signature. I think we missed something, but that was the moment where we got the actual commitment, right? And then we
Yeah.
opened up title. And even then, we were just like, still until closing happened, we actually
Disbelief.
disbelief until we were actually in the closing table together. Because with some sellers, some buyers, I'm sorry, I'm open to being in the same room as my buyer.
Yeah.
Because if we have a good relationship, why do we need to be in separate rooms? To me, I think
I
that's a
hate that.
little
Yeah.
strange.
Was
But
she cash?
she was 100% cash. And
Wow.
so, yeah, this goes back to like Pace's thing when he talks about group homeowners, they're real.
Hmm.
Like that was the first occurrence where I was like, holy crap, like Pace is not joking about these folks because
Hmm.
they have contracts with the government. And so they're
Yeah.
renting per room and that's where they make their money and then also doing their business and helping folks out. And so,
Yeah, it's group homes, or they call it now. It's really, really kind of trendy, co-living. But
mm,
if you guys don't know what that is, they basically convert the living room into bedrooms, and you got to have a certain amount of bathrooms per person and stuff like that. But it's
mhm,
basically putting multiple people that pay by the room, so you end up really increasing your revenue big time on those group homes. And you mentioned she had a couple already, so she was going to convert this one into one and add it to her portfolio. So
mhm,
it was, Jen, this is why I'm such a big believer in the takedown method, because what you're doing is when you buy the dang thing and then you put it back up on the open market, what we're looking for when we do that is what I call an outlier buyer. It's the weird situation that pays way more than everybody else. And so, like, let's say that you didn't do it that way and you just went to like a Facebook group or the local meetup real estate group or your own little cash buyer list. Or let's say that you even went on like PropWire or somewhere and you got a list of buyers and you reached out to them, or Investor Lift or anything. You're still only getting a hold of a small segment of the market. When you can actually buy it, go back on market, and you're on the MLS, now the entire world sees it. Everybody sees it. And then that's typically when you attract that outlier who is going to pay way more than everybody else. And there's
mhm,
always an outlier. It seems like every time I've done a big deal, you get these offers that come in and they're consistently like pretty close together, because those are the numbers. That makes sense. That's what an investor should pay. And then
mhm,
all of a sudden someone comes in and they're just way off. And in your mind, you're like, why in the world are they paying that? But here they are paying it.
mhm. Yeah.
And
It's
in her case, she's just doing the math. Like she's like, well, at 290, at pencils, I can put 8 people in here or whatever, it is, and I want
yep.
it. And I don't want to lose it. So I'm just going to come in with a really aggressive offer and try to get this thing. And that's sounds like that's what she did.
Mhm. Definitely proximity to where her business was the
Yeah.
highest form of why she wanted to pay the highest. And also, I think it was tax reasons. She wanted to make sure she offloaded that cash immediately before the year ended because
Mm.
we closed that in October of 23. And
And this
so,
whole time you're in disbelief. Like you're like, is this going to go through? Is this real?
mhm,
All the way to closing.
all the way to closing. I was like, this has got to be crazy. But she kept in communication. She's a very busy woman. So when we called her, we could tell she was busy, but we were trying to help her out with all the documents that title needed.
Hmm.
And then even scheduling her the closing appointment with her, and usually title does all that, but we were a little over in communication because we
Yeah.
also, again, we were just like, is this real? And so we did everything in our power to make sure like you mentioned, the stars aligned.
Yeah.
And so it did. And now we have a good relationship with her, and hopefully she purchases from us again.
Does she want to buy more?
She says she buys one every year, but we haven't sold her one. We didn't sell her one last year. So
Okay.
maybe this year might be the year.
And Jen, after closing fees when you bought it, after closing fees when you sold it, after hard money payments, and did you have to pay a commission or not really? Maybe a little bit to the broker. Okay.
So there is, I'm sorry, $600 is what the
Okay.
broker
So just
requires.
like a setup fee thing.
Hmm.
Okay. So after all of that, what did
Hmm.
you net on that deal?
Yeah. So we actually netted 129.
129, $129,000 on that deal. Isn't that
Yeah.
incredible? That is just
Yeah.
so awesome. Yeah, congratulations, guys. Tell Jen she's a flipping genius, her and Jasmine. That's really cool. Now, what did that do for you? Like, and that was deal number one, right?
That was. Do you know what?
First deal. First deal.
Yeah.
Wow. Was that
Yeah.
like, how did that change things for you? Like mindset wise or potential, or were you like, okay, no more messing around. Let's do this for real? Like what happened?
Yeah. So the money in the bank wasn't so much like a
Yeah.
investment. I think that might have to do with me though, being very just calm. Yasmin, of course, she's like, hi, wow, like this is fantastic. Um,
Hmm.
because we actually own real estate. We started buying and holding. And so, that's why
Okay.
I look at it like it's not a big chunk for me. Like we've made money in equity. But it did change my mindset. So we were full time. We switched full time to wholesaling
Mm,
real estate in December. So like 2 months later, we were like, you know what, let's make this a business.
mm,
And even after that though, we did do a deal. Our second deal was a 15K deal on market,
mm.
um, I think was more fruitful, to be completely honest, for me, because I don't know, I call the first deal like luck, right? And my mom was technically a bird dog. Um, but to actually put it in motion, right? It was kind of weird. I like the 15K deal more than the six-figure deal.
Well,
Um,
it's because you did agent outreach, you know what I
mhm,
mean? Like that was actually the model that you do day in and day out, whereas the other one was sort of like right place at the right time.
mhm,
Now you were fully deserving of all of it, but it literally was like, getting a referral from your mom to somebody like that's not going to happen every day. Although I will say, the more you put yourself out there, the more that is a common thing,
mhm.
because you're just going to get a lot of referral business in time. That does happen. So don't think that that's totally luck, but
Mhm.
I like what you're saying though, because what you're saying is you're saying, look, the second deal, which was through an agent, was actually applying the skills I've learned, putting them into practice. I had to talk to X number of agents before this one came through, brought a deal, all the things. So I agree with you. I think that is probably more of a proof of concept than the first one, but nothing like $129,000 to kickstart your wholesale career. You know what I mean? Like that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. It's super exciting. It just shows that there are deals out there that,
Hmm.
like you mentioned, if you just put yourself out there, and every conversation that you have with someone, just let them know you're buying houses,
Mm.
And mind you, my mom didn't even know we're going to buy the house. She thought we were going to list the house for him on the
Hmm.
open market. She didn't know anything. So, that's kind of where I'm at this year for our business, is just making it known.
Mm.
There's so much
Getting
that.
loud.
Be loud. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
be
because
loud.
we can stay in our own little bubble and do the reps and the calling, the cold calls and marketing, but it's also who you know. Like a big chunks is of who you know.
Yeah, connecting with the right people for sure. So, what does it look like now? Fast forward to today. What are you focusing on? What's working for you? What are your best marketing channels? How many deals are you trying to do like on a regular basis? What's it look like?
Yeah, so our goal for 2024 was consistency in deals. So we wanted two deals at 15K because we knew we could make 15K on one wholesale deal. So 360 in rev, and this would be our full second year in wholesaling. And we're currently on track, in our months to
Say
do
that
that.
again. You're on track for what?
Yeah, so we're on track. So like 30K a
Yeah.
month. in wholesaling.
Mhm.
Because for me, it is like, it's great to have that big one deal, but then when you're in a slump, it
Mm.
it doesn't feel good, right? And it's like, okay, how do we continuously do the reps, right? Get the
Mm.
leads in, qualify them correctly, make the appointment, make the offer, and then
Yeah.
you're good. It's just like a pipeline. It's where I'm trying to get my head around. It's like I have my KPIs on the board right now, so every time I'm sitting at my desk, I'm like, okay, that's where
Looking at them. Yeah.
I'm looking at them straight up, and then every week now we have a weekly meeting of me and Yasmin just going over, okay, where did we miss the mark, right? Okay, last week it was offers. So if we don't make it offers, we're not getting anything under contract,
Mm.
and so there's that pivot because first the marketing was an issue last year, and our number one marketing channel is direct mail.
Mm.
So
Okay.
we do postcards,
Yeah.
and we do postcards with an actual offer on it.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it's you geo target the addresses, or how do you do that?
So we do it by zip codes, and so I
Okay.
just reverse engineer where
Hmm.
the cash buyers are buying, and then we use open letter marketing for our direct mail,
Hmm. Okay.
and there is a offer price that they have like an API, I guess system that integrates with the value of the home, and then we put a percentage on there. You can either be aggressive or not aggressive depending on how good are you
Yeah.
to walk through that on the phone with them. And it seems to work well because really what we're trying to do is pull the ones that look at the card and just basically say, like I don't think I'm going to get that, but let me call her anyways. And the
Mm.
ones that do say, okay, well, you told me you want to pay this for my house. I know that the motivation's not high enough.
Right.
Yeah.
How much are you spending in direct mail
We're
currently?
averaging 5,000 a month.
In spend.
Hmm.
Okay. And postcards are running you about how much a postcard? 40
Uh,
cents,
60 cents. So
60 cents.
55 to
Okay.
60 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're getting out almost 10,000 postcards.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, that's fun. Well, I'd love to maybe spend some more time breaking down your direct mail strategy. I love that you're doing it because, you know, direct mail is something that not a lot of people are doing, which means it's a great strategy because it's not as competitive as definitely some other marketing channels. And, if you're willing to be consistent with it, it can pay huge. And that's another one too, where someone might pin that on their refrigerator and call you in 6 months from now. So it does take time to start to really build the momentum with direct mail. So you really want to have a runway. You don't ever want to start direct mail and then not give it enough time or be up and down with it. You want to be as consistent as possible with
Hmm.
that direct mail. So good. Well, Jen, I'm really proud of you and Jasmine. You guys are awesome. Jen, you're a flipping genius, by the way, and congrats on that deal and everything you guys are doing.